What's up, guys? This is going to be the full card breakdown for UFC 250. It's coming up later today, 6 o'clock start time for the prelims. A lot of interesting fights on this card, few spots for betting. I'm going to get straight into it. First fight of the night, we got Evan Dunham taking on Herbert Burns. Herbert being the brother of Gilbert. We saw it last weekend, one of the top guys at 170. Really good performance against Tyron Woodley. You know that those two are going to be training together. Burns looked really good in his first fight. He took out Nate Landwehr. A lot of people thought his path to victory in that fight was going to be to grapple, go for the submission. But he ended up knocking out Landwehr with a knee up the middle. So really impressive. And then Evan Dunham, a guy who's been around forever. He did take some time off after a few losses. And when a guy has been around, takes some time off and comes back, with a guy like Herbert, who's, I'd consider to be the new era, where Dunham's one of those guys, kind of like Diego, Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo. He's from that era, and, as well-rounded as he is, I think if Herbert Burns comes in prepared, he can take out Evan Dunham. So I'm going to go with Herbert Burns to get the job done in the first or second round. I'd say that there should be some more respect for Dunham as far as the line goes. But possible parlay option there. When I get to the end of the video and I put up the bets, I'll give out all the options. Next up, we got Alonzo Menefield and Devin Clark. Menefield's got a lot of power in his hands. He's going to be looking for the knockout here. Anytime Devin Clark has an opponent who has that type of power, he's going to look to make it a really boring fight, probably try to push Menefield up against the cage, take the power off of his punches, and just grind out a boring decision. I think it's going to be a lot harder in this fight for Clark. Last fight he took on Daquan Townsend, another guy who has some power, but not UFC caliber, in my opinion. So it's not going to be as easy to hold Menefield like that. No bet, though. I'm going to stay away from this one. I'm going to say Menefield by TK. Next up, we got Jussier Formiga and Alex Perez. So Formiga's coming off a couple of losses. He wasn't happy with the decision against Brandon Moreno. There was a few people who thought that it was a robbery in that fight. I didn't really have a problem with the decision, but previous to that, he has a win over Davison Figueiredo. In my opinion, Davison's the top guy in the division. So, Alex Perez on a solid run. The last loss he took was from Joseph Benavidez. He got finished, a while back, but been on a solid tear since 2016. I will say that most of the guys he beat, I feel that Formiga would have beat as well. And, they're both pretty well-rounded. This is one of those ones where I was surprised to see Formiga as the dog, so I did take a bet. But I do have concerns. Formiga's getting up there in age. Any fight now could be the one where we notice, the significant decline in speed and things like that. I'm going to say it won't be this fight. It's not going to be a huge bet, but... Formiga at dog money is never really a bad play. So I'm going to go with him here. I'm going to say by decision. I could even see him maybe scooping up a submission. Perez is going to be the bigger guy, though, so it will be interesting. Charles Byrd and Magny Pitolo. This is an interesting fight. Pitolo, contender series guy, had a really bad first performance in the UFC against Callum Potter. He basically got, grinded out in that fight. Makes it hard to pick him in this spot. Charles Byrd, he does have some holes in his game as well. Both of them have questionable cardio. I think Byrd's going to look to strike in this fight. I could see him catching Pitolo. Possibly pairing up Byrd with Herbert Burns might be something to look at. But I will be picking Charles Byrd to get it done by TKO. Next up, we got Brian Kelleher and Cody Stamman. So Kelleher coming off of 2 big wins. He was the underdog in both of those fights, and he got finishes in both. Last fight, Hunter Azure by knockout. Previous to that, Ode Osborne by submission. So, really good performances as of late. To see him up at 3.25, even though I would say he should be the dog, that's tempting. Cody Stamman, probably one of the more underrated fighters in the UFC. I think I was probably the only one to pick him to beat Yadong Song. And, in my opinion, he did. It was one of the bigger robberies of last year, calling that a draw. But, he is well-rounded. Both of these guys are well-rounded. So it is going to be a tough call. To see, like I said, Kelleher up at 3.25 might be something to take a small shot on. Cody Stamman, really unfortunate. He lost his brother. I think it was last week. But he is a guy that, I think he's going to be really hungry for the win. He's going to want to dedicate the fight to his brother. So could be a really good one. Because of the price, I do think that Stamman should be the favorite, but not that wide. So I'm going to go with Brian Kelleher by decision. Next up, we got Ian Heinisch and Gerald Meerscheart. This is an interesting fight. Anytime Gerald Meerschaart's the dog, he seems to, really perform well. Ian Heinisch going to be really hungry for a win. Took a loss to Omari Akhmadov in his last fight. He turned it on in the third round, but it wasn't enough to get the job done. I was originally going to put a bet on Heinisch, but, thinking about it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it like I did the Jocko bet a couple weeks ago. I'll just wait till they mix it up and put a live bet down, depending on how things look. I'd prefer to see Heinisch at dog money just because, Meerschaart has had some really good performances. He's really well-rounded. And the cardio, as it gets later in the fight, if the fight goes to the ground, the submission's always a threat as well. So I am going to pick Ian Heinisch to get the job done. And I'm going to be keeping my eye on the line there as well. Next up, we got Chase Hooper and Alex Caceres, fight I'm really looking forward to. Chase Hooper is a grappler. He's going to look for the submission in this fight. He is really hittable. He's been tagged in both of his previous UFC fights, one of them being Contender Series. But Dan Tamer, had he stepped back in that last fight or took his time, he probably could have got the finish. But, he got really sloppy, got caught in the submission. Really good performance by Hooper. But, Alex Caceres, he's had some really bad performances against grapplers. The one that stands out the most is Kron Gracie, right? Gracie made it look really easy, took him down, choked him out quick. You have to think he's going to be training his jiu-jitsu after that fight. I mean, he was really disappointed. He looked embarrassed in there, and he's not going to want to lose to this kid, the up-and-comer. So I am actually going to go with the experience here. Now, if Hooper gets him in a compromising position, it could be a problem for Caceres, but I think he's going to be careful, try to keep his distance and, just win on points. So I'll go, again, Alex Caceres by decision. Then we got Sean O'Malley and Eddie Wineland. Sean O'Malley has a lot of hype on him. I will say he has some really good boxing. He's even tweaked traditional boxing to work really well for MMA. He has good movement, and, there are some good things about him, but anybody saying that, he's ready for the title, he's that good, he's really not. We haven't seen anything as far as grappling goes. He could have had a loss to Andrei Sukumtov on his record if Sukumtov wasn't the, dumbest fighter in the history of the sport. He was on top of O'Malley. Had he got off and stepped back 5 steps, he would have won the fight. O'Malley's knee, or I think it was his ankle actually, was blown, and, he couldn't stand on it. He definitely couldn't have come forward. The ref would have stopped the fight. So worst show of fight IQ in the history of the fight game by Sukumtov. Otherwise, O'Malley would have a loss to him on his record. And I don't even think the hype would be there. If you have a loss to Sukumtov, it's definitely not a good look. But he's going to be taking on Eddie Wineland, another veteran. He's handpicking his opponents right now. So, the UFC is giving him basically what he wants. They definitely want to get behind him. They think he's a star. It's likely that he sees the holes that he needs to see to pick up the W. But at the same time, he's got his holes in his game as well. And Eddie Wineland, being a vet, I don't write him off. So I'm not going to be putting O'Malley in any parlays, anything like that. And because, like I said, the line's so wide, I'll take Eddie Wineland to get it done by submission. Then we got Neil Magny and Anthony Rocco Martin. So this is a pretty close fight. Both of these guys are well-rounded, a lot of experience in the cage, has the potential to be a really close fight. Neil Magny, he likes to stick and move. He's going to most likely look to outpoint Rocco Martin. And Rocco Martin, I think he's going to have to get in his face, because if you give Neil Magny the room, to get off and score, he can run away with it. So I am going to lean towards Neil Magny. But, Rocco Martin, before his loss to Damian Maia, he was on a tear, a guy that I really, I was high on him at one point. So definitely don't write him off. But Magny looked good against Li Jingliang. And, he says he's back, been training hard, looking to have another title run. So I'm going to go with Neil Magny by decision. Then we got a big fight at 135, Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen. These are the 2 top contenders, in my opinion. The winner of this definitely deserves a title shot. Aljamain Sterling, I remember back when, he beat Pedro Munoz. That was, a performance where he made it look easy. I thought he'd be getting a title shot soon after. Corey Sandhagen, another guy, he's impressed me as well. I was kind of waiting to see if he would go to dog money, 2.1 or 2.2. I would have took a shot. Right now it's pick 'em odds, I'm pretty sure, last time I checked. I'll keep an eye on it. I'm going to go with Sandhagen by decision, but Aljamain Sterling, you know, he has the wrestling advantage. So if you were to take it there and just kind of make it, or try to make it a boring fight, it's not going to be easy to do. Sandhagen has good movement. And, you know, he's not going to make it easy to grind him up against the fence. But it's going to be interesting. I'm going to take Sandhagen by decision, but, you know, that's a really good fight. Next up, we got the co-main event, Cody Garbrandt and Rafael Assuncao. You know, Garbrandt's had a rough go of it, knocked out 3 times in a row. So, of course, his chin's going to be questionable. I'm kind of surprised that he's the favorite here. I'm definitely not interested in betting on him. You know, Rafael Assuncao's getting up there in age, though. The reason that Garbrandt's the favorite is most likely just because Assuncao's 10 years older than him. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. I think that Garbrandt's going to have the speed and the boxing advantage here. And as long as he doesn't get tagged, because his chin does worry me at this point, I think he might be able to catch Assuncao and get the job done. I won't be betting it, though. I'm going to go with Garbrandt by TKO. Then we got the main event, Amanda Nunes and Felicia Spenser. You know, I think Amanda's going to be a huge favorite in all her fights until she loses. Definitely the GOAT. You know, Felicia Spenser, though, tough girl. She was the Invicta champ before coming to the UFC. She had some really dominant performances, you know, especially against Megan Anderson, made it look really easy. And a lot of people thought that Cyborg was going to run through her and get her out of there in the first round. And she actually, you know, had a good account of herself, put on a good performance in that fight. So I don't think Amanda Nunes is necessarily going to walk through her. She can take a shot. She's going to keep coming forward. You're going to have to get her out of there to end the fight. So it could be interesting. I'm going to go with Amanda Nunes, though, by TKO. I'll pull up the bets now. So GCA Formiga at dog money. Also, as far as parlay options, you know, I thought Herbert Burns paired up with Charles Byrd was one of the better options. Not a whole lot of great parlay legs on this card to pair up. Even that one, I'm going to be keeping that small. As far as over-unders, I think it's likely that we'll see the over Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen, Neil Magny, Rocco Martin, Meerscheart and Heinisch, and Formiga and Perez. Those are likely all going to go to the over. As far as unders on this card, not a whole lot that stand out. And depending on how Garbrandt's chin holds up or if he's able to connect with Assuncao, there are a few that I think could end in a stoppage. But, you know, not the best week for bets. You know, found a couple spots there. I was going to bet on Ian Heinisch originally. I thought that that was going to be a play. But, you know, watching tape, Gerald Meerscheart had some really good performances. And if he is able to get it to the ground late, like I said, there's always a potential for a submission. So that's about it, guys. Let me know who you guys have as far as your bets and your picks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.